Now, the inspector introduces a chain of events, and that chain of events reveals to us that there is a collective responsibility. We do not live alone. We are not simply a man on his own. We are part of a chain of events. There is a collective responsibility that we have. And we see that Priestley reveals to us that understanding your collective responsibility is the first step to social progress, and the inspector's job in this play is to expose to the Burlings their responsibility, and whether they accept their responsibility and change is the focus. So, for example, when we studied A Christmas Carol, the focus of that novel is change in Scrooge. As he begins to physically tremble, we see a physical change, but only once he has his internal change, his redemption, his atonement, do we see that he is going to lead a better life, and do we see that society can change if we follow this message, this divine message of philanthropy and benevolence. Now, in An Inspector Calls, the goal is change, but we don't see it from every character. A really great kind of contrast is Mr. Berlin and Sheila Berlin. So Mr. Berlin is revealed to have had Eva Smith fired. And then it's revealed that Sheila Berlin also had Eva Smith fired for different reasons, okay? Now, Mr. Berlin, at understanding his sin, Mr. Berlin refers to it as business. He dehumanizes Eva Smith. He doesn't refer to her by her name. To him, she is just an outline of a person. He callously dehumanizes her and reduces the importance of her. And he fired her for having far too much to say, which is ironic because Mr. Berling is the person who spoke the most in this play so far. But he feels entitled to his voice because of patriarchy and because of his wealth and status. Whereas because Eva Smith is a woman, she is not entitled to her voice. And Mr. Berlin, all he seems to say are the reasons for why he did what he did. He does not accept responsibility. Whereas Sheila Berlin says, am I really responsible? She says, I'll never do it again to anybody. And we see change in her. And then as the play continues, she has a real change. And this real change is most obvious here, where she says we must not build a wall. There are lots of small signs of Sheila's change, just like with Scrooge and the tremble, a small sign that he's going to change. But with Sheila Berlin, I think the best example, because we have she said mother, she used to say mummy, but now she says mother, and we have this idea of maturity and kind of changing, taking in her power, becoming independent, etc. But here we have Sheila suggesting something that is collective, suggesting something that is socialist and not capitalist, because she says we must not build a wall, which means she has begun to recognize the wall. So Sheila has begun to see the chain, the inescapable building of something that traps the bourgeoisie. So at this moment, Sheila Berlin recognizes and understands the building and structures of injustice. And she doesn't want to build that wall anymore. She knows we have to destabilize, dismantle the structures that built that wall. And Sheila begins to cut into conversation. And she begins to mirror and reflect the inspector, and by proxy to mirror and reflect the ideas of capitalism. Reduce that. Ignore that. Sheila Berlin begins to mirror and reflect the ideas of socialism, of collectivism, of not building a wall, not having that social hierarchy, but instead having a system that helps the many. So if we can see this difference, we need to think, why has Priestley created this difference? What is the difference between these characters? And the difference is the generation gap. This is the old generation, and this is the young generation. And Priestley is showing us that we have to change the young. That is through the young that we can create that social progression. Through the young, we can cut into the callous misanthropy of the bourgeoisie, and we can create a collectivist, socialist society, which is what Priestley wants to see.